Good to go. I'd like to call to order the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for attending this evening. All board members are present. Our student board members are excused. We will start this evening with an educational program report from South and West Washtenaw Consortium, Mr. Ryan Rowe.
I'm Ryan Rowe, I'm the Executive Director of the South and West Washtenaw Consortium. We provide career technical education offerings to all of the students from Chelsea, Dexter, Manchester, Milan, Lincoln, and Saline. The wonderful thing about this is that not one district could do what we do together on its own, and that really is the mission statement. Kind of an interesting path. Josephine Forbush, who teaches agri-science here at Milan, really I started in that realm. I taught for Manchester agri-science back in 1997 for 7 years under the South and West Washtenaw Consortium umbrella like she does, although similar to her, students didn't come to Manchester for my class, they went to the consortium, similar to what I'm leading today. After teaching in Manchester, ended up becoming an administrator in Onstead, and then became the principal of the LISD Tech Center in Adrian for Lenawee County. And at that time, really the push was for everyone to go to four-year institutions. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Following that, became the superintendent of Madison School District on the east side of Adrian before, in January of 2020, assuming the role of executive director at the consortium. The interesting thing about that is I arrive in January and take over for the consortium, and then 10 weeks later we're shut down due to COVID. So the interesting thing for us in education, it's been a wild ride for the last 2.5 years, although in the consortium we were really balancing 6 districts and 6 district schedules to offer a hybrid approach to their education and career technical education with hands-on learning during that period of time. So we persevered through that. Numbers were down throughout the state with enrollment in career technical education, but we knew that CTE would come back and it would come back strong. And part of that was when before COVID, we really hit kind of an economic low. We were looking for, if any of you are involved in business and have posted for positions for employment, we need employees, and that's with teachers and bus drivers and custodians and machinists and welders and healthcare and across the board. Well, when COVID hit, that problem was simply accentuated because those that could retire at 55, a lot of those individuals resigned or retired, called the Great Recession, or resignation, as we call it today with this. So when we knew that, we said, what can we do to really promote our career technical education opportunities for students like at Milan? So I just want to talk about the process of that enrollment, how that occurs, and then update you on some trends that we see. So in the fall, I stand right here, and our video news production program puts about a 20-minute promotional video highlighting all of our programs that are offered, and we have all of the Milan sophomores sitting right in these seats. And it's pretty exciting because they can look outside of the halls of Milan and say, what's available to me for career technical education? And they get excited and they see what's available. But we knew this year, after students hadn't seen or smelled, or in some cases with culinary, tasted the opportunities that are available to them, we had to bring them into these labs and have them talk with not only teachers and see the labs, but make it an experience. So we decided to start planning that. And we did so through a SWWC Open House and Business Showcase. And so we invited 40 businesses, things from Liebherr Aerospace, which is an international company, to Lefty's Cheesesteak out of Ann Arbor for culinary, to come in and just promote the opportunities that are available to students following high school or during high school as an employee. So they came in, students came in, parents came in, grandparents came in, aunts and uncles, and we had engagement stations where students could stand in front of a green screen, say I'm really interested in automotive, and have their picture taken, and go to the culinary lab and do a make and take treat. But ultimately, they were able to go to the lab and see what they could experience through a career technical education opportunity, talk to the teacher, and then talk to businesses that were there. And that's what we were really excited about. So kind of a three-step process. We talked to them here, they had the open house, they came back, and then they were able to choose 2 programs to really take a closer look at. So they were bussed over, took a closer look right before Christmas, and then they applied. Part of that showcase was the fact that when students came in to see these experiences, they could also talk to Washtenaw Community College, was one of those engagement stations, and see what free college credit could be earned as part of the programs that are offered. Students received a CTE passport to their future, and if they were able to hit all of those stations, they were put in for a prize and a raffle. It was kind of fun and exciting way to engage students through that CTE exploration phase to see what they might be interested in. So following that, we opened the application process right before Christmas break. And we had a 38% increase in applications for this fall compared to last year. Now, a lot of that was COVID related, but a lot of it was students recognizing that they wanted to get back to hands-on, authentic, relevant learning experiences through CTE. The interesting thing is, once those 3 things happen, I talk to the sophomores, and then they come over for the open house, and then right before Christmas break, they're able to take a closer look at 2 programs. They immediately fill out the application and say, I want to do this. Well, remember, this is in December. So now we're 4 months later, and a lot of things can happen in 4 months. They can experience some course and they say, I want to take an advanced placement class, or I want to dual enroll, or I have a job experience, or life happens. And so out of those 91 students that applied for these programs, right now, Milan has about, I think there's 19 students that chose something else. So we're working through that application process with about 78, 79 students through that enrollment process. Well, when we saw that 38% increase in applications, we knew not all of those students would end up enrolling in the programs, but we knew we had to respond. How do we respond to expand programming when we're going to have that many students interested in career technical education? So we looked at what we currently offered, we looked at economic forecast, we looked at where the interest was, and we said, well, let's do the following things. We have an accounting class that's a traditional accounting class, and it's only offered 1 hour a day. We're going to shift that class and make it a entrepreneurship, business, and finance class, incorporate accounting principles, but a lot of our students are interested in forming a small business, whether that's a bakery or owning their own welding operation. So we want to expand that, and we're going to offer that both in the morning and in the afternoon. We also, one of our most competitive programs to get into is welding. And that course, with the wait list that we have, has an architectural CAD program, a welding program, but I knew we kind of needed a third leg for that 3-legged stool to round out that engineering manufacturing area. And so Blake Ballou, who is a proud Milan graduate, 2018 graduate, is an assistant in our welding program. He's a proud machinist, and we've hired Blake to expand our computer integrated manufacturing program as part of our engineering pathway. And so that's open to students starting in the fall. The great thing about that is if we have students on the wait list for welding and they can't get into welding for some reason, they could take computer integrated manufacturing their junior year and then potentially enroll in welding their senior year for really a dynamic duo of programs going into employment or going on to college. Our CAD class was only offered 1 hour a day. It'll be offered 2 times, 2nd and 5th hour. Cybersecurity, so we applied for a cybersecurity program to be opened. This is at the Chelsea location. Most of our programs are offered at Saline High School, although we do offer a graphics program at Dexter, and we offer a health science morning program at Chelsea, an engineering robotics program at Chelsea, and a cybersecurity program at Chelsea. Our cosmetology program is offered in Saline across US 12 by Brood Awakenings. They're part of a kind of a shopping center, so they have a storefront. And then we've partnered with Habitat for Humanity for our building trades program, and we renovate 2 homes in Ypsilanti as opposed to building new homes from scratch. So that's where we're located. The engineering robotics program, as I said, is a new program this year. Cosmetology, we offer our SWWC students an opportunity to participate with cosmetology in the morning. Ann Arbor is in the afternoon. If Ann Arbor doesn't fill all of those slots, then we'll take advantage of those for students from Milan or the other 5 districts. A lot of students interested in automotive and automotive tech. If we have a wait list and students can't get into that, we can offer space in our collision repair program, which is offered in IPSI if a student really has an interest in that as an alternative automotive program. And then this is the Milan Board of Education and Superintendent Gearbaugh really are the first to hear this. We had 81 applicants from the consortium for our health science program. Health science is offered in Chelsea in the morning, Saline in the afternoon, and students can earn a certified nursing aid certificate through that program. Highly competitive program, 81 applicants, 20 spots available in the morning, 20 spots available in the afternoon. That leaves 41 students not able to get into that program. So we needed to respond, and we needed to respond really in the healthcare field. So we quickly launched a search for someone who would be interested in teaching exercise science, which would be an introduction to athletic training, physical therapy, and EMT. We had 3 very, very viable candidates for that, and our individual that went through 3 rounds of interviews actually taught a lesson. She accepted this afternoon, so you're the first to hear that. And I will be contacting the students that are on the wait list for health science starting tomorrow morning and working with the counselors to give those students the first right to that program, and then we'll open it up. So really responding to, we have the supply of students, really responding to the demand for what might be offered. On the same account, we're really opening some opportunities through work-based learning experiences. So for instance, all of the juniors that went through the health science program, they're at Chelsea Retirement Complex right now if they're at the Chelsea location, or the Saline Evangelical Home if they're at the Saline location. If they complete that successfully their junior year, we want to provide them another opportunity for them to exercise and practice those skills. So another proud Milan graduate, Cindy Elliott, who is the president of IHA, she's an 83 graduate from Milan, has spent a lot of time with me throughout this year, including doing a podcast, sharing her experiences at Milan and through our program through Health Occupations. And she's offered any returning second-year student out of health sciences an opportunity to work at any IHA location. Paid internship. So a lot of our seniors have flexibility in their senior schedule. And they might have core academic courses to take, and maybe they finish at 11 or 11:30. At 11:30, they could leave Milan High School, go off to an IHA location and practice their skill set. There's also tuition reimbursement opportunities for those students as well. That's one experience. Building trades, for instance. We have students that go through our building trades program their junior year. They attain OSHA certification. We're not going to bring them back for a second year to be taking part in our building trades program. We want to place them with an area of their interest: HVAC, plumbing, electrical, Chelsea Lumber Company, for instance, Kleinschmidt's in Manchester. And one more experience that I'll tell you is we had a student that went through our automotive program, highly motivated, very, very intelligent student, went through our automotive 1 and 2 programs, and he said to me, I want to take another automotive class, and I said, I don't think so. I think you're going to go practice your skill set. Where do we have a talent gap? We have it in our bus garages and not enough bus mechanics. And so he has a paid internship. He leaves the high school at 11:30, goes to the bus garage and assists the bus mechanics because he's certified in ATEF with specific areas and has a paid internship as a mechanic. So those are the types of experiences that we're trying to place our students in following a successful year as those students complete their course. Milan's track record with enrollment in the consortium, it's very interesting, and it looks like a lot of the other districts that we work with. You may have a class of 17-18 or 20-21 that there's a demand for SWWC CTE programming, and the next year there may not. So a couple interesting tidbits. So I'll just give you some trend data. In 17-18, Milan High School had 39 students that enrolled in programming. The next year in 18-19, 61. 19-20, 46. 2021, 76. Milan by far exceeded expectations with enrollment that year. 21-22, we had 50 students, and if we are to fill all of the slots of student interest this year, it would be 72. Okay? So right now, I provide weekly updates to all of the counselors in the local districts. So tomorrow, because we don't have school on Friday, I'll provide an update to the Milan counselors saying, you have so many students on the wait list, we have so many opportunities in these other programs. Would you like to remain on the wait list? And I will do this throughout the spring and summer. And we have students move out of state from Dexter that say, you know what, we've changed our mind, there's an opening. And I'll go right down the list. I work through a Google Doc, so it's real time, and I'm able to just place students in the order of priority. And by fall, we've done a pretty good job of placing students, if not in their first choice, in their second. So right now, Milan has there's 6 programs where Milan has students on the wait list. These are our most competitive programs: automotive, building trades, cosmetology, culinary, health science, and welding. Now the great thing is, go ahead. Yep.
Could you just do that list?
Yep, I sure can. And I can provide these to Brian too to give to you. The great thing is with these wait lists, for instance, we have 2 students on the wait list for health science from Milan High School. Tomorrow when I call your counselors, I will say, we have an opportunity in exercise science. With welding, you have 4 students on the welding wait list. I'm going to offer that opportunity for computer integrated manufacturing. So we've got alternatives for students so that they can have a CTE experience. It may not be their first choice their junior year, but hopefully their senior year that will take place. And this shifts quite dramatically over the next few weeks as the counselors really meet with students and tell them what classes they're enrolled in and what opportunities are available. For a class size of 20 at the consortium, Milan would get approximately 4 spots. For a class of 24, 6 spots. 28, 8 spots. However, marketing just based on class size, Milan would get 4 allotments, 4 slots. Last year, Milan had 8 students in marketing. So we go through a process where if Dexter doesn't want their spots, we can swap those with another district. So just because Milan is allocated 4 doesn't mean they end up with 4. They could end up with much more than that based on the interest from the other districts. We always talk about soft skills, which is interesting. I always look at soft skills as kind of natural for career technical education. We talk about pedagogy and teaching and tech integration and learning spaces and community, but often with career technical education, the equipment is quite expensive, a CNC machine and such. So just so happened this year that non-millage funded counties, such as Washtenaw County that does not have a vocational millage, were able to apply for a CTE equipment grant, and we were awarded that. Washtenaw County received, on our behalf, $535,000, and then the consortium had a proration of that of $287,000. So we went through a competitive application process. 50% of the funds that we invested in the equipment had to be spent on the bolded areas were recognized as the top 5 areas of economic need and growth in Washtenaw County. So for instance, health science, obviously a major need for those individuals who work in health science. So we were able to purchase an Alex Light simulation mannequin, some rail beds, infant mannequins, and so on and so forth. You can see all of the equipment that was purchased and invested in the labs that Milan High School students are able to use throughout the consortium. And then finally, our community connection. So I've kind of talked about what work-based learning experiences our students are able to have and able to go and do. When I arrived in January of 2020, we were still building a rather large home south of Saline. And frankly, before COVID, it was not financially feasible. I can't imagine now with the supply where we would be with building supplies if we were still in that business. So we shifted. I had conversations right away in February when I arrived with Habitat for Humanity of Huron Valley. They needed the help. They provided the resources that we needed and could provide the experiences of the technical skills that we wanted to teach. Everything from flooring, cabinetry, insulation, framing, roof, HVAC, electrical, right to the bottom. We continued to work during COVID because we were on a hybrid schedule and complete a home. Habitat of Huron Valley normally finishes 16 homes. During COVID, they finished 6, and we were one of those. They came to us this year, and said, how about 2? So now we have side-by-side homes, which really works out well. Spread the students out, we're able to instruct, and then divide and conquer. So we're doing 2 homes this year. The Carroll family, finally we had the home dedication that I was able to be part of and really commend the students on their involvement with that process. That's what I have for you this evening. I want to thank Superintendent Gearbaugh for the invitation and the Milan Board of Education for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I would entertain any questions, and then I'm more than happy to provide any data to Brian that you'd like to receive pertaining to Milan High School students. Okay, thank you again for the opportunity. Greatly appreciate it.
Look into that tomorrow.
I was ready to run.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rowe. We appreciate it. Great work, and we look forward to getting those students placed. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity. Next up is communications. This is the time for public comment. Reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak up for up to 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 30-second warning and then ask you to finish your thought when you hear the beeper. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. As we start public comment, we are going to have our bowling coach, Dawn Divert, to introduce her team and give us some information regarding them. I think it should be on. It should be on.
Is it on? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. This is half of our team this year. We had a total of 10 bowlers come out this year to bowl. We finished up our 16th season as a team this year, and I could have asked for better kids this year. I mean, they just are wonderful. Some of the accomplishments that we had was sophomore Rachel Pelado finished with first team here on League Honors. Gabby Dryden here and Allie Jones were honorable mentions in the league. First team honors also went to Max Jenis. And then Tyler Saunders and Tyler Maravino were honorable mentions. We also had a state qualifier, which was our 3rd girl from the 16 seasons, Rachel Pelado. She finished with a total score, or she qualified with a total score of 1,004 pins. That's 6 games. And then the following weekend, we went to states, and she finished 26th in the division out of 60 girls, which is our highest finisher that we've ever had with the team. And this year's team consisted of Captain Tyler Saunders, Captain Max Jennis, Aaron Reuter, Ethan Truen, Zach Fink, Tyler Maravino, Clark Fries, Captain Gabby Dryden, Rachel Pelado, and Allie Jones. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Good job, guys. Good job.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Gearbaugh is working with Athletic Director Mr. Hall to formally recognize all our spring and winter sports. We can formally recognize it on a future board meeting, but we definitely appreciate the team coming this evening. Quite an accomplishment. Thank you so much. Are there others who would like to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hobbs. I'm going to ask that my comments be recorded in the minutes. Jan, it's nice to see you back. Welcome. And my condolences with you and your family. I am happy to see the scorecard as part of the agenda. I had a couple questions that I would like to ask, and hopefully they can be
Hold on, Mrs. Hobbs, I'm sorry. Yeah, just-
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to start over?
No, we heard you. Yep,
Okay.
we're good.
So I'm happy to hear, or happy to see that the scorecard is part of the agenda. I do have some questions, and if you guys could answer those in your presentation, that'd be great. I do see that for the communications section for the various schools, there's a notation that says it's for the communications committee. And I just didn't understand what that was, because I did not believe that that was part of the communications committee that is part of the school board, or the Board of Education. I'd like to see us use other metrics to compare Milan to as far as scores, rather than just using the state average. Can we look to using data from other comparable districts and/or neighboring districts? And then I also have some questions on, I saw that there were teacher postings at the high school and middle school. There were 4 posted for the high school, and I believe 2 posted for the middle school. And so I'm just curious to know why those postings have been made, considering that we know that we have a decline in our enrollment, that we know that we're gonna have to, make some tough decisions on teacher placement next year, and the COVID funds are only temporary. So I appreciate any sort of comment or feedback you can provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs.
That's not going to fall over, is it?
Are there others?
Hi, Dawn Divert again. I just want to say I love the presentation about the consortium program. I myself am a alumni of the consortium program. 34 years ago, I graduated from the cosmetology program. I still do that career, absolutely love it. If it's something that you think that your child might be interested in, please, please get them in there, because, it's a wonderful program. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others? All right, thank you for your comments. Next up is routine matters for approval. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the workshop meeting of March 23rd, 2022.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Landingham.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion.
Mr. Suso?
Yes, Ms. Freight.
I just wanted to thank you again and just make sure that I'm clear that we're still going to make this be something we're discussing on our communications committee when we're meeting.
Yes, we
It's
will.
only table.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I'd like my comments in the minutes if you would, Mrs. Heike.
Any other questions or concerns? Been moved by Pharaoh, supported by Landingham to approve the minutes of the workshop meeting of March 23rd, 2022. Ms. Heike.
Heike, yes. Kiger,
Yes.
Landingham,
Yes.
Macchio,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight.
No?
Motion carries 6-1.
Next up is bills reimbursement of expenses. I need a motion to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion. Any other questions or concerns? It's been moved by Pharaoh, supported by Macchio to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Ms. Heike.
Kiger,
Yes.
Landingham,
Yes.
Macchio,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight.
Yes?
Heike, yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Next up is finance issues. This is a first reading of our budget of a 2021-2022 April budget amendment. So just so everybody's aware, we generally do a first reading of these budget amendments, time for the board, give time for the board to ask questions, and then we bring it back to a future meeting to vote on. So at this time, Mr. Gearbaugh.
As you said, this is a two-step process. We will be presenting the amendment tonight. Ms. Hendricks will be providing you with information. The first page that you have is the actual one-page budget summary that you will be voting on at the next meeting. The second page are the changes from the last amendment. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Hendricks to describe those changes since the last budget amendment.
I'm going to start by going over the first page. The first column where it says amended budget is the budget that was adopted or amended and accepted last January. The second column is what I am proposing changing the budget figures to, and the third column shows you the increase or decrease per function. We are looking at increasing our revenues by $201,579. And I'm proposing a reduction to our expenditures by $323,797. You will note, though, farther down on page 1, under the assigned fund balances, I am increasing the assigned fund balance for the preschool program by $300,303. That is because this year Mrs. Mellinger applied for and was awarded a preschool stabilization grant, which we had to use up before we could ask for the next round of money. So to do that, we used wages up to this point. All of this money truly is directed at the preschool program, but because I had an influx of money, I wanted to show it as a reserve for the program in the assigned fund category so that you have a more realistic picture of what the bottom line would look like. That money is not general, it is in our general fund, but it truly is program specific. So if you look at the second page, the top portion shows the changes that I am making or proposing to make to the revenues. If you see the grants with offsetting expenditures, you'll see the same dollar amount in both categories. The majority of that money is that $303 for the preschool program. And then there are a number of other grants that either went up or went down. Our special ed funding is always based on the cost from the year before. We received the adjustment to our prior year special ed funding, and it was a reduction of $193,747. There were some adjustments in ORS, about $69,181, and then there were a number of lines that went up and down, and I listed them as a lump sum under miscellaneous adjustments for $9,181. As far as the expenditures are concerned, again, the grants with offsetting revenues. In the ESSER 2 budget, when I presented it to you in January, I had the funding all for stuff. Whether it was PPE or curriculum or technology, it was all in supply lines. What we have discovered since the January amendment is that that need for stuff, specifically for these dollars, isn't as big as our full allocation. So I am proposing to use $335,000 of that ESSER 2 money and apply it against wages, which is an allowable expense under the grant. I also reduced the child care tuition-based program expenditures by the $300,303 for the preschool stabilization grant. I removed a special or non-special education social worker, which had been discussed and put in the last amendment. We are having a very difficult time finding somebody to fill that position. So for this budget year, we are taking it out of the budget and we will put it back in for the 22-23 school year. And if by some miracle something happens between now and the end of the school year, we will come back to you and ask you to put it back in. We had also had a middle school in-school suspension paraprofessional position that was never filled because of our challenges filling paraprofessional positions right now. We thought it would be better to leave the paras that we have in the special education program because many of them are one-on-ones. So there's a para required by IEPs. So we're taking that out of this budget and we will reevaluate and see if it needs to go back in next year also. We have a budget for advertising, which for the last 2 or 3 years we have not done much of, partly because of COVID. We are reducing that budget down to $5,000, so I'm removing $15,000 from our district budget. We had to have some brickwork done here at the high school. That cost was $24,570. We had some roofing repairs outside of the normal patching. At the middle school, we've had some HVAC control upgrades that are outside of our normal expenditures. And then I have a small number for the miscellaneous adjustments. If you look at what I'm proposing in revenues and what I am proposing in expenditures, I'm proposing the use of $2.2 million in fund balance. Last time I came to you, it was 2.7. So we're making our fund balance higher by $525,000, but $300,000 of that one has been spoken for already. So, do you have any questions?
Mr. Sislo.
Mr. Farrell.
I don't have any questions, Krista, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate for the board, I did meet with Krista on these proposed adjustments to the budget. Again, I know that it looks like there's this $500,000 swing to benefit the general fund. But as Krista has accurately indicated, over $300,000 of that is earmarked and will be expensed down below. So what you're going to see is a projected gain on net fund balance of $225,073. That also, the other thing that I just wanted to mention is that, prior to my time, I think the goal of the district has been to have a fund balance between around 10%. I think what Krista has presented, what I reviewed with Krista, is a bit more reflective of where we're going to land on this fiscal year. Having said that, there is the potential for another budget amendment, so we will probably go through this process again. I did discuss with Krista some questions that I had with regard to local, state, and federal funds, when we receive the funds, et cetera, and she was able to answer all of those questions. Just for the community's knowledge, the local funds are primarily property tax funds. These funds are received as payments that are made to cities and townships. State revenue is received on a monthly basis with the exception of the month of September. I can't explain why we don't get any payments in the month of September, but for some reason we don't. Federal aid includes grants that are received after reimbursement requests have been made, and my understanding is that that's done on a quarterly basis. Obviously, we can't ask for the grant funds until the district has spent them. So I just wanted the board to be aware that I'm very comfortable with the budget adjustment that's been presented to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Others?
Mr. Sizzle?
Yeah, Mrs. Frey.
Krista, this is probably redundant, so forgive me, but the grant that we're offsetting the money by, is that something that gets reapplied for and then it'll be offset again? The
preschool
yes,
one?
Yes, sorry, the preschool grant, the stabilizing.
There are two, it goes along with all of the COVID funding.
Okay.
We had the opportunity to apply for a fall grant. Lisa applied in the fall. The expenses could go back into last year if we needed. We can ask for a spring allocation, which she has done and we've been approved for, I believe. We have the dollar amount. We don't have the official approval. But that money can be used this year or into next year. So even though you're seeing 300 now, there's a very good possibility that that number will go up based on our second funding pot. But it's one-time money, and truly our program, the school district programs are unique for this. The money is directed at anybody that has a preschool program, so if it's out of your home or if you're doing it for profit and you didn't have kids but you had to pay the rent, this money is to help offset that also. As a program run in the school, we do not have rent. All of that is covered by the district. So we have supplies and we have people and we have food. That's what we use our money for.
So this is kind of along the same lines that we've always been applying for different grants to offset our costs, right? This isn't
Yes.
a unique change, it's just a COVID situation with the funding.
It's a unique opportunity due to COVID.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And it's not considered ESSER money. I mean, this is a separate grant from ESSER.
Correct. It is not district ESSER money. It's under the child care. It's not under Department of Ed.
Part of the reason we're putting that money into the fund balance is we honestly just received this grant in the last couple of months, and so we obviously don't want to be, we want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible with the way that we use those funds. So in order to be able to apply for the second round, we had to have expensed the first round, and so we used it for staffing. So that's why then obviously all the tuition and things we collected weren't needed for staffing. So we want to put that into the fund balance. Next year, they're going to be able to look at supplies and materials and furniture and salaries and all types of different things with those funds. We just didn't want to rush that process and try and spend all of that this year. But we also didn't want to misstate our bottom line. That's technically not kind of K-12 money, that's preschool money, and so we felt it was appropriate to move it into the fund balance designated for the preschool programs.
And a little bit of clarification, this is only for tuition-based preschool. It does not impact the GSRP program.
I have a question about the special ed, the reduction in the special ed funding. I may not have this understanding correct, so please correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that that really is a pie, right? There's a certain amount of dollar amount, and it gets allocated around the schools, the different districts, based on our expenses from previous years. I'm assuming that we aren't the only ones who had reduced costs last year because the students weren't in the buildings as much. And I think we covered this in a previous meeting, but can you just help me clarify again that that reduction is literal because we had less expenses last year? Is that money then going to other districts, or is it going back into the pie to be reallocated another way?
I think you might be talking about the ISD's pie, which is
Okay.
at $18. This is state funding.
This is state funding. Okay, I'm sorry, totally misunderstood. Scratch my question.
No, and to clarify, though, it is a good question. So this is a prior year adjustment. So they're looking back and saying you didn't spend that much last year, so you didn't ask for as large a reimbursement as you anticipated going into last year. And so remember, we always get a prior year adjustment. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. I think a lot of districts experienced a negative prior year adjustment this year based on the fact that we didn't have students in school all day, every day last year.
Thank you.
I have a question about the preschool grant. First, I want to make sure that my recollection is correct, but did the preschool staff get a pay increase this last round? I thought they did not, but I could be remembering that incorrectly.
They have not.
They have not. Okay, and so then, Brian, did I hear you say that we can, or Krista, did I hear Brian correctly say that we could use some of those funds to, even if it's one-time money, because I understand this is a one-time grant, to provide some sort of increase for our preschool staff also?
Yes, and Brian and I have already discussed it. I have not had a chance to sit down with Lisa and talk about what it would look like for our preschool program, but there is a possibility, because the state money is offsetting tuition, and the tuition truly is for these staff members. There is a possibility of us being able to give some type of wage increase.
And then when you said that other tuition-based preschools could use this money perhaps to pay rent and things like that, but our preschool doesn't have that issue, is there a let me take one step back. There's still expenses that the school incurs by running the preschool through the building, right? There's cleaning costs, there's heating costs, you know, everything that goes with having more people in the building. Is there a way, perhaps through an agreement and a chargeback or something, where the school can recoup some of those additional costs for the preschool? Because we still had to pay those even though the school numbers are down.
We do with other grants, and when I say other, it's more the federal grants, have an indirect cost rate, and it's calculated every spring. It goes up or down based on the district's costs, that we apply to our flow-through, our special ed flow-through, our special ed preschool. We could apply it to our Title I and Title II if we chose. As a district, we could look at somehow setting up that indirect cost for the preschool program. We haven't in the past. In the past, they've not had this influx of money, but it could be something that we sit down and discuss as a district if that is a route we want to go. Just so that you're aware, that percent, I believe, is 3.89%. It's not a huge number, and it's based on what our costs as the district are that are not directly allocated. So it would be your custodial cost, it would be your administration cost, it would be any legal fees, compared to the whole of the district. So the cost of the high school and the cost of the elementaries and the cost of the middle school are all directly allocated, but it's those other pieces, which amount to about 4% of our district budget, that we use that indirect cost rate for.
Okay. I would encourage us to look at that, if there's a way to recoup costs to help support the preschool. I don't know how much work goes into that and based on the return, but I would encourage us to look at that as just a way to recoup some of that money.
Some other things that we have done in the past, when the preschool has had funds, they've paid for the wood chips to put on the entire paddock playground because they use that. So that is a way that we do save the district some expenditure because the preschool program will pay to put wood chips on the playground. And there are different things that we've done along those lines at times where we've been able to have them pay for something that both programs use, and then that does help us recoup a little bit of.
And I want to make clear, I'm not trying to charge the preschool. I don't want to do that. But if there's a way for us to recoup some of those costs through grants or through federal funding or something, you know, I would appreciate looking into how we do that.
Absolutely.
And then on the $39,000 that was spent for the HVAC control upgrades, could that be also taken from COVID money, or?
They're not, it's because the boards in the HVAC systems went bad. It's not a filtration piece.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
It's an old age piece.
Nope, that's okay. Thank you.
And we're going to be doing more of that as well. You know, this building is 20 years old, and our other buildings' HVAC systems are 12 to 13 years old. And what's happening is the main control cards for them are becoming obsolete. And so when one goes bad, we can't replace it. There is no replacement, so we're having to upgrade them. And so we've got a whole list from the company that we work with and the order that we should be replacing them. And the nice thing is when we do replace a couple of these, we can then hold those ones that we replaced in case one of them does go bad before we can get around to getting it replaced. So this is the beginning. We've got another round of this coming in next year's budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, to go off that, when we do the replacements, is there something with like the filtrations or any kind of wiggle room of like, okay, we're replacing it to be better guarded for COVID?
This is totally the control card that helps control.
Okay, so just the panel, not the
Yeah,
system itself.
No, it's not the
I
system. It's
apologize.
actually the control card on the boilers and the air conditioning.
Great, thank you.
All right, good questions. Any other questions or concerns? Again, this is a first reading. Please continue to pour through these and ask Ms. Hendricks and Mr. Gearbaugh any questions you have. Thank you for the detail you provided. Thank you. Next on the agenda is teacher appointments. I need a motion to appoint the following people to the teaching positions listed below and base salaries listed effective immediately.
So moved.
Second by Farrow.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who moved? I missed it.
Farrell.
I thought he seconded.
Landing.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Discussion. So this is for a middle school teacher consultant, Paddock first grade, and middle school science teacher. Did all these folks go through the
Yes, all the positions were created by resignations, and all of the positions were hired using the certified staff hiring procedures as approved by the Board of Education.
Brian, more out of curiosity, how many teacher consultants do we have at each building? We're getting another here at the middle school, right? But that's, like you said, replacing. So how many, do we have one per grade level there, or?
I don't want to misspeak, so these are my best recollection. Paddock has 3. This will make 4 at the middle school. Simons has 3, and the high school has, I believe, 3. We are working on a couple of positions at the high school that are posted right now because we had some resignations there as well. And we kind of looked at which building. This person could have been high school or middle school, as we had vacancies at both. But we really felt right now the middle school had a stronger need, and the high school administration was involved in that decision.
And Brian, just out of curiosity, I know you do a really good job with the teacher orientation, staff orientation that you start off with at the beginning of the year. What do we have in place for some of the later hires?
So we actually have these three and then two others. I'm working right now to schedule the orientation session 1, which is really focused on you as the employee, and it talks about all the systems we use and the payroll systems and all of those things. I'm working on getting another session 1 scheduled for the 5 people that we've just hired in the last 2 months, so that they don't have to wait all the way until next year to get that,
All right, thank
that
you.
session.
And then this is just a kudos, Brian. It's nice to see that, I don't know, is it Olak? Mrs. Olak? That I know she's been long-term subbing, so it's kind of nice that we're able to keep her on as a team and some consistency for our first graders. So thank you for that consideration, and it's kind of nice for our first graders. So I appreciate that.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? It's been moved by Landingham, supported by Farrow, to appoint the following people to the teaching positions listed and base salaries listed effective immediately. Ms. Heika.
Landingham?
Yes.
Macchio?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes?
Heika, yes. Kiger?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next up is superintendent's contract extension. Need a motion to extend the superintendent's contract by 1 year through June 30th of 2027.
Moved
So-
by Farrow.
Support Macchio.
Been moved by Farrow, support by Macchio, to extend the superintendent's contract by 1 year through June 30th, 2027. Mr. Gearbaugh is on a 5-year contract with the district. In that contract, it's our responsibility as a board to consider this. It was postponed at our last meeting due to a conflict of interest, and we bring it back here for approval. This doesn't change any of the terms in the contract, just the extension of it by 1 year. Any questions or comments?
Not that I'm wishing this on you, Brian, but in the event that you retire, is the severance part, like, go out to the extension? Because this will extend you to 27, right? I'm just idly curious.
Yeah, no, if I retire, I'm paid through my last day of work, and
Vacation and
that's
sick.
it. Yeah, and then the normal payouts like everyone has, but no, there's no guaranteed severance package in my contract.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions or concerns? It's been moved by Farrow, support by Macchio, to extend the superintendent's contract by 1 year through June 30th, 2027. Ms. Heika.
Macchio?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes?
Heika, as I announced at the previous meeting, I'm abstaining due to a professional conflict of interest. Kiger?
Yes.
Landingham?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, next up on the agenda is board issues, Communications Committee update. We do have 2 of our members here. Alicia Powell is here, and then Larry Biederman is on our committee. At our last meeting, there was a suggestion that a member of the committee give the update for transparency. So Mr. Biederman volunteered to do that for us, so we appreciate that. So he's going to give the update from our communications committee thus far.
Can I interject just quickly? Jill Tousley is also here.
Oh,
We have 3
I'm
members.
sorry, Jill. Yeah, you're too bright. I'm sorry, I couldn't see. You blended in, so yes, Jill is also, I apologize, Jill Tousley is also on our committee, so. Mr. Biederman.
Thank you very much. I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Larry Biederman. Some of you might know me as the crossing guard over at Simons Elementary School, and I'm also the president of the Board of Trustees of the Milan Public Library. My wife and I have a son, Drew, who is in 7th grade at the middle school. I'm also a high school teacher, but not for Milan area schools. I am one of 12 members of the community who are together with 3 members of the board, who are the 15 of us form the Ad Hoc Communications Committee. The main purpose is to evaluate and improve board communications with the community, to try to really strengthen two-way communications between the board and the community. So we have met twice. Our first meeting, we talked about the perceptions of the board decision-making process. And it's difficult to overcome some of the perceptions that people have, because some people think, well, you know, maybe before the meetings, the board just makes up their mind ahead of time. And some people might think that maybe the board only listens to the superintendent. So we reviewed how the board is following the Open Meetings Act by only making decisions in a public meeting, such as this one. So when 4 or more board members are present, that's a public meeting, which is in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. And it's a tricky thing to follow the Open Meetings Act, because there are a lot of things you cannot do that are making restrictions. Decisions have to be in public meetings. So that's one of the concerns that was brought up. At our most recent meeting, we reviewed the history of broadcasting the meetings with the pandemic. It all started with Zoom. But eventually the Open Meetings Act changed. There was an emergency availability to use virtual meetings, but that ability to use virtual meetings eventually was an emergency thing, and it ended. So that's when the switch was made to Facebook. But not everyone has Facebook, so then the switch was made to YouTube, which led to a discussion of YouTube comments. Because Facebook Live comments were on, YouTube comments are off. And they're not part of the official record. They're not part of the same platform as the meeting. We're meeting here in person, so people who are meeting in YouTube, but they were not actually part of the same platform, so those comments wouldn't actually be part of the record. Legally, that has to be checked. You mentioned that you're checking with legal to see about how that can be done. There was some discussion that YouTube comments could capture some of the thoughts that might not be expressed in an email or might not be expressed in other public comment. The community wants to feel heard, and YouTube comments might be a way of doing that. It depends. There's some feasibility aspects that need to be explored there. But overall, the community and the board all together are passionate about communicating. Everyone wants to have their say, and everyone wants to make their connections. We started some brainstorming to get some ideas, because eventually we need to get to the point of having some very official and concrete recommendations. The big focus, again, is two-way communications. What is the best way, and what are the best options to have two-way communication between the board and the community? Town hall and community meetings were discussed. Also, the possibility of maybe informal meetings before the formal meetings. That's one option that has been discussed. Overall, though, you know, there's so many different ways, and we need to find out what is going to strengthen this communication. People actually sometimes need a place to be angry. And how do you connect in an appropriate manner when you're angry? That actually was a concern that was brought up. Overall, I was very impressed with what I heard in the committee. It really does seem as if the board is truly committed to increasing and improving how they connect with the community. Stories from the community definitely need to be heard, right? That's what our committee is all about. We'll continue to meet, and hopefully we have plans already for another member of the community to present future updates. And eventually we'll have some very formal recommendations for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Biederman.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the scorecard update as an attachment B. And I will address the question in regards to the communications as Mrs. Hobbs stated, you are correct. I mean, it's, when this was first developed, there was thoughts that potentially some ideas could drift out of the communications committee that could help, that could be put into this. Some parking lot ideas from that committee, but that committee has really stayed on task in regards to board communications. So we definitely need to flush out what those goals are and the measures are underneath that goal. So it's, we'll obviously we could probably have that as part of the communication tonight, but that's where we're at with that. Mr. Gearbaugh is going to go through some of the things that have been added. So, Mr. Gearbaugh.
So at this time, the first two updates to the scorecard, I've been asked to start to provide the data pieces to the scorecard. The actual goals and objectives part of the scorecard are part of my evaluation process, and so at our first quarterly update on my goal work, we'll be working through those and talking about what has been accomplished, what the plan is to accomplish the other items, and then at that point we'll start to use that aspect of the scorecard. So tonight, again, is just starting to fill in some of the data points. So the data points that have been added since the last update, if you look at the second page, the participation rate in extracurriculars, you can see that we listed the extracurriculars and how many students were involved in each of those at the buildings. On the third page, we entered the promotion rates, and at the high school, the graduation rates. I did, for the high school, list the last 3 years of graduation rates. Obviously, as most high schools did, we had a small dip in our percentage, as did the state of Michigan as a whole during COVID. We hope to see that rebound back to those 90% in the coming year. If you go down under learning environment and culture, I did add one more month of attendance. I also added the disciplinary actions, out-of-school suspensions, and in-school suspensions. Under ongoing learning environment and cultural initiatives, the administrators helped me plug in some of the major programs that they have running in their buildings. A lot of those you heard about during the building's presentations over the last couple of months. And then on the last page, under financial operations, I did start to add a few more items that I am taking care of under the financial operations goal and objectives. And again, there will be more coming on that aspect, as well as the other goals and objectives as we work through the evaluation process over the next 12 months. Are there any questions?
Brian?
Yes.
I just had a quick question. I mean, I have the information in front of me, but I thought it would be helpful if you could explain briefly what the sinking fund, is, because we will be talking about that in the future.
Yes. It's a terrible name, first, for what it is, but it's the name that the state of Michigan puts on it. So it's called a site sinking fund. And if it is something that the Board of Education decided to investigate after hearing about it, it is a community voted on millage. For example, there are about 5 districts in the county that have site sinking funds. As you know, back in 2009, we went for a bond proposal of about $49.9 million. We used that to renovate 3 buildings, build a new bus garage, build an addition on the high school. The dollars are used in a different way, and they're not actually bonded for. So in other words, you could pass a site sinking millage for 1 mil for 5 years, a half a mil for 10 years, 2 mils for 6 years. That's something that, you know, if we get further down the conversation we're going to talk about, we would obviously do some research in the community and kind of see what they might consider supporting or not supporting. Part of the reason I want to start talking to the board about a site sinking fund at this point is the state of Michigan expanded the uses of site sinking funds. So they can be used for building remodeling, building upgrades. That's always been there. If a boiler blows, you could replace the boiler with it. If you need to replace a section of roof, you can do that. So you saw some expenses actually going into our general fund budget this time that could have been paid for using site sinking funds. The other two things that were recently added with some limitations are the purchase of buses and the purchase of technology. So if we could, if down the path as we're talking about this, it's something the board's interested in, we could talk about the wording that we would put on the ballot. This would go to the voters would have to approve it. It's nothing that we can implement on our own. And then we would have if we did 1 mil, we would have the value of 1 mil, and that's something I'd be presenting in the future when we have these conversations. How much does that bring in? And then what are, the language of the ballot would include what those funds are going to be used for. Obviously if we're upkeeping our roofs and we're doing repairs, but we've got a couple of sections of roof at the middle school that need to be replaced. And now you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's going to come out of the general fund if we don't have another way to pay for it. The same thing with some of these HVAC control systems, lighting control systems. Again, I know we all think this building is new, but this building is pushing 20 years old. And as you know, if you own a home, when you get to 20 years old, there are things that start to need to be fixed and updated and replaced and repaired. Those expenses are going to come out of the general fund if we don't come up with another mechanism. And so that's why I want to begin the conversation with the board about, is this something we are interested in? And when I do come with a formal presentation, I'll give a lot clearer explanation and values of what a mill would bring in and all of those types of things. And we're a year or more out before we would ever consider putting something on the ballot. There's a lot of conversation and process that needs to take place. I've also been eyeing what our current debt millage rate is. As you know, it started off at 8.04. We were then required by the state of Michigan under a change in the law during a summertime when no one was really watching. The legislature decided to change it and changed all the rules of the game, and all of a sudden, as all of you know, our taxes increased from 8.04 mils to 13 mils without any vote of the people. That has now been coming down, and as we start to get that back closer to the 8.04 as we pay some of those bonds off, then it starts to make sense to look at the potential of going to the community with a site sinking fund. Does that help?
Yep, that helps. I just want the community to be aware that the usage of a sinking fund, the school district accesses the money on hand to pay for projects as they're completed. Since the school district has not borrowed money for projects, no debt is incurred. Funds generated through the sinking fund can only be used for construction, renovations, and repair of buildings, not for operating expenses, salaries, benefits, or routine maintenance.
Yep.
In addition, the money cannot be used for textbooks or bus replacement. But again, as Brian said, it'll be a conversation that we have in the future. But I thought it was important to just get it out in the open.
So in regards to the communications measures, I would like the board members to kind of to consider that, consider some measures that we could bring back to put in there. I'd also ask Mr. Gearbaugh to talk to the admin team in regards to some communication measures from the buildings that would make sense to be measured and placed on the scorecard, such that we can fill those in and move forward with that. Does anybody have any specific ideas right now in regards to measures? Kind of putting everybody on the spot, but obviously we're going to bring this back to some time to discuss. But I do ask you to do it so that we can fill that out.
Oh, my question, Andrew, was more, I'm just trying to understand, because is the scorecard, the purpose behind it, was the scorecard to measure more of what Brian was doing or measure more of what the board was?
It's more about the district. It's the district goals. So, I mean, it's a combination of I mean, it's the district goals and how those are monitored. So, I mean, some of Brian's goals fill into that, but overall, it's a scorecard of the district.
And the hope is to have it posted, correct, on the website eventually?
It's posted right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm not sure that this most recent one is posted,
No, the update will be posted tomorrow.
so the last time it was presented, that was there, but now this one will be posted. All right, any other questions or concerns? All right, next on the agenda is student issues. I need a motion to approve the adult and community education graduates as listed in attachment C, contingent upon their completion of all requirements.
So moved by Freight?
Support by Heike.
It's been moved by Freight, supported by Heike, to approve the adult communication education graduates as listed in attachment C, contingent upon their completion of all requirements. Discussion.
Very excited we can extend the list.
Yeah, congratulations.
It's always nice to
Yeah.
add people. Do those numbers go into your graduation rate that we just had on, or is that
It goes into, the graduation rate on the scorecard is the high school graduation rate. Those do go into the district graduation rate. So we have an early college alliance graduation rate, we have a WAVE graduation rate, we have the adult education graduation rate, the Milan high school graduation rate. I think there's a fifth one. I'd have to look.
FCI?
Oh, yeah,
That's the
FCI.
FCI.
correction one?
FCI is not a K-12 program, even though we issue diplomas, the gentlemen aren't of the age that they would be. And then all of those get aggregate into the district graduation rate.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, it's been moved by Freight and supported by Heike to approve the adult community education graduates as listed in attachment C, contingent upon their completion of all requirements. Ms. Heike?
Sislo.
Yes.
Pharaoh.
Yes.
Freight.
Yes?
Heike, yes. Kiger.
Yes.
Landingham.
Yes.
Macchio.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next up on the agenda is public comments. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. I will give you a 30-second warning, and I ask you to finish their thought when the beeper goes off. Board members may question speakers, but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Is there anyone that would like to address the board?
I think it's off. Oh, there you go.
Hi, my name is Annie Cruz. This is a fantastic meeting. Thank you so much for bringing the Communications Committee up and having them talk. The transparency is fantastic, and I look forward to hearing more about the decisions or recommendations that you're making to the board. And allowing the committee member to address does support that transparency, but also it lets the community know that your reach has become a little broader, which is wonderful. I just have a couple of questions regarding the scorecard. And Mr. Gearbaugh, I'm just curious, who provided the counts for the sports-related figures, especially tennis and boys swimming and diving? Only because I have personal connections to that, and those numbers seem a little high. So I just was curious.
Those numbers were from the athletic director.
Okay. Those numbers seem a bit high based on what we experienced, but I can talk to Mr. Hall about that, just curious. And then on the learning environment under culture, very concerning about the number of in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions as related to the middle school. Do you have statistics? I'm assuming you have statistics on prior years. Are these statistics, are these numbers consistent pretty much since prior to, well, 2019 and prior? Or do you see that there's been an increase in these rates? That's kind of concerning to me. That's another question. And then, Mr. Farrell, I really appreciate you asking that question on the definition for the sinking fund. It's always beneficial for the community to be educated, even when you know some of those reasons. So I really appreciated, hearing that from you and Mr. Gearbaugh on what that means. And then lastly, I just want to make sure if I'm hearing correctly, regarding the HVAC, so the funds that are, the expenditures on the HVAC are only related to the decay of the certain materials that are in the schools, and there's no money being utilized from COVID dollars or other funds to improve the
30
HVAC
seconds.
systems all over the school district, so we have a better ventilation to help with the health and safety of the students as we move into future virus seasons. So if you could address that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Are there others?
Hello, Rachel Hobbs again. I'm going to ask that my comments be recorded in the minutes. I'm just going to throw out some buzzwords. A lot of these buzzwords are part of many of the different comments that I've given over the past meetings. Some of these are new. But I just kind of wonder what the most effective way is with communicating with the board. Is it buzzwords, or is it, drawn out 3 minutes of comments? So I'll let you guys decide which you like better. So some of them, I have the expenses and disbursements. When will that be made public? Discussion about declining enrollment, town hall meeting, common ground, strategic plan, minutes, school safety, a status update of the investigation of the complaint that was, the resolution was passed a few meetings ago. And also I want to thank the board members that took time out of their schedules the last couple weeks to attend events. Thank you.
Ms. Hobbs, I'm sorry, what was the one about you said at the previous meeting? I'm trying to understand.
If you guys can provide any sort of status update on the investigation of the complaint.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jill Tuesley. I feel like when I take the microphone, I have to start singing or something. It's kind of...
Go ahead.
Right? No, you don't want me to do that. I just wanted to share a couple of observations about things I've experienced lately. This past weekend, I had the opportunity to spend some time Friday, Saturday, and Sunday working in the concession booth here at the high school during a major event that took place here in the high school. It was a big dance competition that drew hundreds of people into the community and into our school from across the region and out of state. One, for the job that I have in the community, it was great to see so many new people experience our downtown and our community for the very first time, and hopefully they will return. But a couple of observations about things that happened while I was in the concession stand there. I cannot tell you the number of times I had an individual walk up and say, "Wow, your school is amazing." And I think it's just something that we sometimes forget, and we take advantage or just lose perspective of how fortunate we are to have such a great facility and facilities for our kids to learn in. And to hear that from other people was just a nice reminder. I also wanted to just give a shout out to all of the kids that helped in that booth and to Miss Yvette for helping to coordinate all that. These kids came and many of them for the very first time had an opportunity to kind of do customer service face-to-face in a high-stress situation, serving people very quickly, and it was just really a great experience to see that happen, and we're very fortunate that that took place at our school. The other thing that I wanted to share, for those of you that don't know, I kind of have a front row seat in my office to downtown. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to witness these kids and their families and community members come downtown and look at the Paddock Kindness Project banners. And to see their response is amazing. I had one kid run right up in front of my office, "Look, Mom, my friend's on this picture." They're so excited to see their friends. They're learning how to be respectful and do kind things and support one another in a kind way, which is really great. But also the adults are learning from the things that are on those kindness banners too. I've seen so many people just walk downtown, read from the banners and learn from our kids. And it's just a huge compliment to our schools to find a way to get out into our community and connect beyond the four walls of the buildings that they're in. So I just wanted to give everyone a shout out for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tousley. Are there others?
Hello, can you hear me? I won't sing either. Alicia Powell. I have a couple things. So for the scorecard update, I thought it might be helpful if you could, maybe in each different section, address which strategic goal it aligns to in your strategic plan. Really your strategic plan should be addressed every meeting and kind of how you're moving that forward and what you're doing to contribute to it, and just that it's always in front of your face, and that's driving your decisions. So it might be nice just to incorporate both of those, and then it kind of gives you a little progress on how you're doing with your strategic plan and along with your scorecard and how you're doing on it. That's just a thought. The other question I had was when we were discussing the financial thing, the special education expenses, did you say that the High Point and like the education expenses, was that for High Point or that is for the students that are here? That those are here? Okay. So at some point, and maybe this is a topic, like a conversation that we could meet with later, because I need help with High Point. I have a son who is 9 years old. He has, since Thanksgiving break, attended 39 and a half days of school. He will not be attending school again until next Monday because of COVID. So he's in close contact. He's currently quarantined. He is the only person quarantined in his classroom. No other student, no other teacher. He has no symptoms, but he is not able to test in the typical ways that everyone else would test, both in a nasal swab or with a spit test, apparently. That's a new one. And so he's been 5.5 months without even consistent school. And for a child who relies on a consistent pattern and a consistent routine, he's struggling, and it's not fair to him, and he has the right. So I really need some help. I know High Point has a big issue for them is staffing. They're working on it, but frankly, it's not fast enough for my son. They don't have, to my knowledge, and I have a meeting the next week for summer school, because he does attend the summer program. There's no staff. And he didn't attend last year because there wasn't staff. So, and I realize that this is kind of a big issue that is out of many, many people's hands, and, but I need help, and I need something done. I don't want to get legal services involved, but that's my next step, because my son deserves an education, and if he can't get one at High Point, I need some other options. So that would be great if you could help me out on that one.
30 seconds.
I'll be done complaining for right now. I'm just kidding.
It's not complaining, it's
Oh,
advocating.
yes, can you put that on the record too, because I need High Point to know.
Gotcha.
I'm watching them.
And Mr. Gearwell, could you reach out to Mrs. Powell in regards to that? Thank you. Are there others? All right, thank you for those comments. Next on the agenda is superintendent comments. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Several things to inform the community of this evening. First, again, as always, we want to remind the families that throughout the 21-22 school year, full meal equivalent breakfasts and lunches will be free to all students on scheduled days. Individual milks and other food items will not be free. I also want to stress that as of this time, there is no announcement of any extension of this free program for all students. So it is going to be critical after July 1st that our families that normally qualify for free and reduced lunch complete those applications. You're going to be getting communications from the school district, information about household incomes that qualify, but what we don't want to have happen is students return to school next year and are not being provided free and reduced lunch at the beginning of the school year because their parents haven't gone back and filled out those forms that were required in the past but haven't been required for 2 years. So again, it's important. We will be getting communications out to the entire district, informing them of the process to apply for free and reduced lunch moving forward. Our school is taking part in the Michigan Profile for Healthy Youth survey, supported by the Michigan Department of Education. This research survey will ask about health behaviors of 7th, 9th, and 11th grade students. The survey will ask about behavior and attitude related to nutrition, physical activity, injuries, tobacco, alcohol, and other drug use. It will also ask about sexual behaviors that cause AIDS, other sexually transmitted diseases, and pregnancy. The district's Sexual Health Advisory Committee uses the data from this survey in conjunction with a community survey that will be coming out in the near future to help guide the district's health curriculum. This survey is anonymous, and parents have the right to opt their students out of taking the survey. Students taking the survey also have the ability to skip any question or to stop taking the survey at any time if they feel uncomfortable. The surveys are available for parent review in the Milan Middle School and Milan High School offices as parents are making their decisions about having their students take the survey or opting out of the survey. April 6th was National Paraprofessional Day. We want to thank each of our paraprofessionals for supporting our students and providing them with the assistance and encouragement needed to be successful. Without our paraprofessionals, we would not be able to provide our students with the outstanding and high-quality education they deserve. Our full inclusion model in Milan area schools would not be successful without our amazing paraprofessionals. Again, thank you to all of those folks that serve in that role in Milan area schools. Some happy news, Tracy Terrace, a Paddock teacher, became a grandmother for the first time earlier this week. Some sad news, Brad Burkeen, one of our bus drivers, lost his father earlier this week. That name is very familiar in the transportation department because his wife, Marilyn Burkeen, also works there, so obviously she lost her father-in-law. On Thursday, March 24th, Mr. McMahon and I conducted another session of the new staff orientation series. Topics discussed at this session were teacher evaluation, teacher certification, student assessment and use of data, time management, classroom management, and the mentor-mentee process. We also opened this session with a ask or tell the superintendent time period where all of the new hires could ask any question of myself or Mr. McMahon or make any comments that they felt it was important for us to hear. We always want that feedback from our staff. The number one item shared from our new teachers was their appreciation of the amount of support provided to them as new teachers. They talked about the reading specialists, they talked about the math specialists, they talked about their mentor teacher, they talked about the coaches that we have in the buildings, and honestly, in general, they talked about the the staff overall wanting to see them be successful. And the fact that they didn't feel they only had one mentor, their assigned mentor, but they had 20 to 30 mentors in the building who would all step up and help them whenever they had the need. Some board information. The Michigan Association of School Boards will be hosting a virtual event to recognize board members who have earned MASB awards for taking CBA classes. This year, Milan has 3 board members being recognized. Andrew Sislow will be recognized with the Master Board Member Award and the Data Specialty Award. Tom Farrow will be recognized with the Certified Board Member Award and the Award of Merit. And Kirsten Freight will receive the Award of Distinction. Congratulations to Andrew, Tom, Kirsten, and every board member who took CBA classes this year. Just because they aren't receiving an award doesn't mean that they didn't take classes. They just kind of didn't get to that next level where they receive recognition for completion. Want to remind everyone that Milan COVID data can be viewed by visiting Milan area schools and looking at the COVID case data link. There is no longer a requirement to have a COVID dashboard on our website. The state dropped that, but I feel that for the remainder of this year, it's beneficial to our community to still kind of keep track of the cases that we are having in the school district, so we will maintain that dashboard through the end of this school year. And that is all that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Yearbaugh. Mr. McMahon.
I'm down here now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple updates to share. Just one on state assessments. We started officially today. The WEED assessment is a state assessment. That's already wrapped up for our EL students. But the SAT today with 11th graders and the PSAT 8 for 8th graders was underway. And we had less than 5 total absences between the 2 grades, which is terrific. There'll be makeups for those in 2 weeks. And then tomorrow, juniors take the work keys. Our 9th graders take the PSAT 9, and our 10th graders take the PSAT 10. And then M-STEP from there on for secondary folks to follow. One grant update, our robotics grant for this school year was finally approved. As you've probably realized, there's been a just tremendous delay in the grant process for all the grants. Usually the robotics grant is approved in like November-ish, but it was just approved late March. This year was increased quite a bit. It was over $15,000. And that's going to go towards registration, team expenses, materials, actually some laptops and 3D printers, and some coaching stipends, which we're required to match from district funds a little bit. So we're happy that that's finally approved and can be spent. And I also want to add a little bit to what Brian said about the MyFi survey and our Sexual Health Advisory Committee, SHAC. So the MyFi's out. He explained that. We're also going to be sending out, on behalf of SHAC, the district will be sending out membership recruitment surveys. There are certain conditions of positions you have to have on the SHAC committee, and we haven't had to fill those. Well, the pandemic kind of put us back a little bit there, but those positions have been filled for a number of years, and now there's some vacancies, so we got to get those filled back up. So there'll be some surveys coming out with some explanations about what we're trying to do there. And then also, there's going to be a reproductive health curriculum survey coming out that we do every 2 years, and it's in conjunction with the MyFi survey. That's data for the SHAC committee from the community to help us make decisions in terms of what we teach and when we teach it, and that actually ends up with you guys in terms of like if the determination is we need new curriculum or new materials, that comes to you guys. So that's coming out pretty soon too. We're trying to make up for some lost time during the pandemic here, but Ms. Kunzel at the middle school and I've been working to get things moving along there. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. As I stated, our student board members are excused. So board member comments.
I'm going to start the roundtable.
Sure, Mrs. Frey.
And if my comments could be in the minutes, I'd appreciate it, Mrs. Haig. To move off of the grant, thank you, Ryan, for the update on that. I want to congratulate or hopefully congratulate or extend some good luck wishes to our robotics team. I think they headed out today for Saginaw Valley. That's states for a robotics competition. Hopefully, they will also be able to go over to Houston for Worlds. We've been fortunate enough with some district support to be able to have our students go to Worlds a couple of different times. It's a phenomenal experience. Through the years with our robotics team, we've also been able to go down through our schools and have middle school teams and our Simons team with some help of our staff and mentorships. So it's been a really great positive experience for our kids, and I wish them the best of luck today today, tomorrow, and Friday, I believe, up at the States competition in Saginaw Valley. Also want to thank Don for staying and bringing the bowling team for, what'd you have, 10 kids? Right, 10 kids, 16th season. We did a really well representation, so I'm very glad after 16 years for your dedication and having the kids show up today. Shout out again on sports as well for our soccer, track, baseball, softball, all of our spring sports. You know, hope everybody's going well. It's kind of nice to be able to see cars and people out at our events and seeing our kids represent Milan as well as they do. Our middle school is also putting on a play, Beauty and the Beast, April 2nd, or 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Those of you that know Mrs. Wexler, you know she puts a lot of dedication into costumes, and it should be a theme we all know, and just a really good time to go and see our middle schoolers perform. On that same note, Mrs. Barker's here, so correct me if I do anything wrong, but the National Junior Honor Society is partnering to do a book drive, correct? So it'd be nice if anybody wants to donate any books. They're going to Mott's. Okay, so kind of a nice thing that the National Junior Honor Society is also doing. To build off Mrs. Tousley, the kindness campaign from Paddock is phenomenal. It is really, really neat to see the comments and the pictures of our kids and the interaction of it downtown. If anything, it reminds us to be kind, which is really, really neat. Also, Mr. Gearball, how long is our FFA? We have an outstanding FFA program. I mean, it's been here for forever. So it's really nice to see that we have some new officers and that our long routes have produced such great results, because they, on the greenhouse, should be having some goods for us pretty soon too. They've always had some really great things. And I also want to thank Mr. McMahon to wish our students some success on the testing, PSAT or SAT. Put in a tremendous, as I said, I see this in the kids too, amount of pressure on our kids with this test, and I just hope that they realize it's just a test. You know, it is reflective, we put a lot of stuff, but it's just a test, and to never let a number, any number, define them, and just do their best, because they represent us exceptionally well. Very, very proud of them. Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, Ms. Frey.
Thank you.
Mr. Sislo.
Yes, Mr. Farrell.
So a few things. One, I really want to welcome back our colleague, Jen Kiger. It's just very good to see you. I think I speak for all of us on the board that we're just so blessed to have you on the board. You've been such a tremendous mentor to me. And I really think the board and myself really value your continued good deeds on behalf of the school district. So, Kirsten and Jill already mentioned the kindness campaign. I too have seen that around the city. It's just really great to see. If you haven't had a chance to check out the banners, please try to do that. And it's just a wonderful campaign. I also wanted to mention that Teacher Appreciation Week is May 2nd through the 6th. Our district is blessed with outstanding and hardworking teachers. I'm so very appreciative of each and every one of our teachers today and every day. However, the week of May 2nd through 6th is an especially good time for parents and students to assist our teachers with a little extra support and to provide an extra big thank you for all that they do. I want to thank Larry Biederman for coming tonight and for providing us the report from the Communications Committee. Finally, if Allie Molina were here tonight, she would be reporting on the girls varsity soccer team. They tied their match today 1-1. I'm a bit biased, but it's a great group of kids. They've been really fun to watch, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to see some other sports and extracurricular activities in the near future. Thank you.
Ms. Landingham. Thank you,
So
Ms. Frey.
my first comment is actually for Coach Don. I have, one of my kids has become friends with someone who bowls for SMCC. And when she found out that we were from Milan, she said, their coach is so nice. And the kids are really cool too. So thank you for representing Milan. I was so proud to be a Big Red when she said that. And so thank you for representing Milan so well, not just in how well the kids bowl, but in taking that character out into the other districts too. That's very, very cool. Mr. Yerba, the information that you're sending out about free and reduced lunch and the importance of applying for it, can we consider putting something in there about applying for it even if you don't expect your kids to actually take the lunch? I don't think the community understands how much is based on that percentage of free and reduced lunch. And if there's a possibility that you could qualify, even if you plan to pack your child a lunch, it's really important to get those applications in, because we have a lot that hinges on those applications and that approval process. So maybe expanding that communication a little bit. And then my last comment is about the survey that both Mr. Gearbaugh and Mr. McMahon mentioned. I've seen some chatter on social media about it. And I just want to encourage, I 100% respect every parent's right to opt out of that survey. But I would just encourage, I saw a couple people comment things like, I haven't read the survey, but I'm going to opt my child out anyway. Please do your homework. When I read the survey, personally, this is just a personal opinion, I didn't see anything super objectionable. And everybody has different thresholds and different opinions, and I respect that. But do your own homework. Make the decision for your own child. Opting out because someone else does is not doing your due diligence, in my opinion. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Ms. Landingham. I'll go to Ms. Heiken, and
I go next?
we'll do the...
Okay. I also want to congratulate the bowling team again, and thank you guys all for coming, and I look forward to having you back in an official capacity so we can officially celebrate all of your accomplishments this past year. Mrs. Tousley took some of my fire and thunder away, but I too was here all weekend long for the dance competition. And I want to thank Miss Yvette and Mr. J. They were here all weekend long working, but they kept everything in the auditorium moving very smoothly, everything in all of the hallways. I mean, there were dancers spread out through all of these hallways. And there were parents and grandparents and siblings, and I mean, there were a lot of people here, and they both kept everything running so smoothly that there were many organizations that were here that weekend that asked about the facility and how they could, what opportunities there were for them to also use the facility. So it was a great draw to not only bring people into town and to see our wonderful downtown, and to see our facilities, but perhaps bring people back in other capacities. I also want to congratulate the Dance Explosion team that was here this week. They are made up, I don't know the exact percentage, but there's a large percentage of Milan students, all the way from little tiny preschoolers all the way up to seniors in high school that dance on that team, and they all performed very well this weekend. And in fact, that dance team won the, I'm going to get the name wrong, it was the On Fire Award, but it was based on the way that the teammates treat each other and how they treated the judges and the staff and other dancers just throughout the weekend. So again, acknowledging our students, acknowledging the way the great ways that they treat each other and their respect for one another and the respect for their competitors. I mean, it is dance, but it is very competitive. And the way that they just congratulate each other, congratulate their competitors, that was all recognized by a group of judges here this weekend. So kudos to all of them. I want to congratulate the seniors on that dance team. That was their last dance competition, so there were lots of tears, but some beautiful dancers and some wonderful friendships that were made as well. In case, if you don't know, the Michigan legislature has created a school safety committee who is meeting and looking at recommendations and ways to improve school safety. I personally have read the preliminary report that they have put out, and my opinion is it's a lot more of the same things. It's more lockdown drills. It's more just what things we've already been doing. I don't think that that necessarily increases school safety here, particularly increased lockdown drills. I think that I think that's very traumatic for our kids, and we're asking a lot of our teachers. I encourage all of you to read the report and to reach out to your state legislators and ask them what more can be done, because they are very focused on what happens once the weapon gets into the school, and it didn't seem like there was a lot of focus on how the weapon got in the school or what we can do to even prevent that from happening. So I encourage all of our community members to read the report, reach out to your state legislators, and quite frankly, demand more from them. I want to remind all of our board members that pursuant to our board operating policy, that if you'd like to have an item on the agenda, all you have to do is reach out to the president and make that request. There's a timing issue in there, but there is a provision in there that allows board members to put individual items on the agenda. And then I also want to echo Tom's letting the community know that Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. Typically, our PTOs will handle celebrating the teachers, you know, getting together lunches, getting together meals, those kinds of things for the teachers. Our high school does not have a PTO. So if you'd like to participate in Teacher Appreciation Week events, you should reach out to Nancy Gill. She's an English teacher here at the high school, and she's trying to organize some parents to organize some events for our high school teachers as well.
Thank you, Ms. Aiko. Ms. Macchio.
Can I add one thing real quick? I promised that if the event from this weekend came up, Yvette Cashmere asked me to make sure that we mentioned that Aaron Keel, one of our teachers at the high school, and Kevin Reigner, one of our technicians here, were here very, very late on Friday helping make all of it be a success. So they weren't as visible, but she said, if it comes up, can you please make sure that you thank those people because they helped her a tremendous amount. So since a couple of board members mentioned it, I needed to get those two names in there.
No, thank you. And thank you, Yvette, for recognizing all of them. Because there was, I mean, I'm sure there were more people than those two, but those are the two that I talked to.
Ms. Macchio.
I really just had one quick thing. I just wanted to update everybody on a little tidbit of a project going on at Paddock. So in 2020, one of our high school seniors who graduated, CC LeBlanc, did a project in Senior Wing where she built a little free library. And COVID hit. So, so her mom reached out to me and said, would you be interested in doing something with it? So Mr. DeSarbo and I met several months ago, and I talked to Mr. Gearba a little bit, but we'll be installing a little free library outside of Paddock sometime in late April or early May. So Sean and I are working out the details. So I wanted to thank the LeBlanc family for that. My husband and I are doing a little weatherproofing of it and just kind of getting all the details done. And but yeah, we're really looking forward to having like a grand opening and asking people to, you know, frequent it. That's what it's there for. So I'll give more information when we have a date and a time and everything. But we're super excited about that. So should be fun.
Cool. Thanks, Ms. Macchio. Ms. Geiger.
I'd like to thank my Milan area schools family, both here at the table and throughout the district, for your support. Your kind words have lifted me greatly. Andrew, you and Jennifer make your mom proud every single day. My grandchildren, Henry and Lucy, are fifth generation from our family to be part of Milan area schools. And I firmly believe there's no better place for them to receive their education than here, and to be instructed and cared for by the people who are a part of this school district. Mrs. Freight, my husband, in the mid-'70s was a member of the FFA. Wow. And my youngest son did a season of bowling, so I know how much fun that is and how much work our advisors put into that. I've heard this comment before, and I've never addressed it, so I guess tonight's the night. I'm always puzzled when I hear a comment that seems to suggest that the insight and the outreach of this board is narrow. I'm one board member. My family either owns or farms property in every municipality that encompasses Milan area schools. London Township, Milan Township, Augusta Township, York Township, Exeter Township, the city of Milan. So I have knowledge of and insight into and concern and interest in every part of this district. and I'm one board member. Every board member at this table can read your resume. That's just as impressive. So I don't believe that we have a narrow outreach or a narrow insight. Now, it might not, our insights and our outreach might not be valued by everyone, but we bring all of that to our decision-making and to the table and to be part of this board.
Thank you, Ms. Kiger. We are glad to have you back. I do want to thank you again to Mr. Biederman for giving the excellent summary. I appreciate it. I do appreciate the committee members again, Mrs. Powell and Ms. Tousley, for attending our meetings. And then again, all the community members and parents that are here and their comments so that we can do better. And I also look forward to the recognition of all of our other student activities. I appreciate Ms. Divert coming with her team this evening. It is a lot of great things that the school does. So with that, I don't have anything other. Does anybody have anything else? All right, meeting's adjourned at 8:56.